Listen. We're in the Champions League. We're in the Champions League. Finishing top 3. We're in the Champions League. Where's Liverpool? Not there. Where's Chelsea? Not there. Where's Spurs? Not there. Oh my God! You're not going blood.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. That intro, I'm telling you, that intro. Oh, I'm hoping, and I'm praying for a result tomorrow, because that intro off the back of a loss when it's not going well for you. Oh my goodness me. But I hope everyone's doing very well, having a good Monday afternoon. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. This is the Manchester United versus FC Copenhagen press conference reaction. Erik ten Hag and Dalot has been speaking to the assembled media. If I'm going to do actually the pronunciation, I should do it both. Erik ten Hag and Dalot have been speaking to the assembled media, Carrington, ahead of tomorrow's Champions League home clash against Copenhagen. And it's a must-win game. Cannot lose at all. If we lose, we're out. If we get a draw, we're barely in it. But basically, what we're looking at is 4 games left of the Champions League. You say most of the time 10 points will get you through. So we're saying 3 wins and a draw out of our remaining 4 games. There's a lot to be done, and there's lots of questions that were asked of Erik ten Hag and Diogo Dalot today. Of course, the overarching theme of the press conference was the sad passing of Sir Bobby Charlton. Lots of questions about him, his legacy, his impact. Tributes tomorrow at Old Trafford, getting a victory in his honour. Diogo Dalot's goal at the weekend, sort of a fitting tribute, a Bobby Charlton-esque screamer from outside of the box certainly as well. There was a minute's silence held before the press conference too, as there will be tomorrow. And also, obviously, all the players will be wearing black armbands in tribute of the Manchester United. Again, I mentioned it on social media. I mean, the word icon, when it comes to football, gets thrown around so much. But it doesn't even do justice, the legacy of Sir Bobby Charlton. Not even just with Manchester United, just English football, global football. This is a World Cup winner. This is a Ballon d'Or winner. This is... Again, it's difficult to put into words the legacy of Sir Bobby Charlton on Man United, on football, on everything. So it's going to be an emotionally charged evening, certainly at Old Trafford tomorrow. And obviously, once again, thoughts, prayers and condolences go out to his family, his loved ones, his wife, his children, his grandchildren at this very difficult and sad time, certainly. Now, there was a bit of confusion, shall we say, in this press conference regarding some team news, which we'll get to. That's a bit of a cliffhanger, but I've already seen social media and the media in general go with the story that Jadon Sancho is going to be available for Manchester United tomorrow. He is not. Jadon Sancho's name was not brought up in the press conference. I can't lie. When Erik ten Hag was talking, I thought, did he say Sancho? And then you realise, actually, the context of who he was talking about, and you go, oh, again, a bit of a thick accent there. He was talking about Sergio, not Sancho. And lots of people went, so we'll get to that, certainly. So be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. What are people saying in the chat at the moment as well? T. Nathan says that intro is GOAT levels, even if we don't make it. We have had it tough so far, yeah? When you lose your first 2 games, and then you do, and particularly in the manner against Bayern, I know it's 4-3, but it's got outplayed, or when it's against Galatasaray, leading the game, and then completely collapsing to play the intro afterwards, it's tough. Big up Steph in the chat, says, afternoon, Owen, beard game strong, how long has that taken? It's taken about 12 years to get this amount of growth going. A lot of people say to me, when it comes to the facial hair stuff, they go, "Oh, Owen, you're trying to go for a new look." KG said this to me. He said, "You're going for a new look. You're trying to grow out your facial hair," and I go, "No, I'm just lazy. It is not a style choice at all." Like, I really sympathize with people. There's ones that they'll shave in the morning, and by later on in the evening, they've already got, was it 4 o'clock shadow, whatever it's called, 6 o'clock. What is the time shadow? I don't know what it is. Shadow. They've got afternoon shadow. Is it 5 o'clock shadow? Or is it 4? I don't know. I wouldn't know. So I've never had to use the phrase before. Is it 5 o'clock? Five, yeah, I said 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock. Again, I wouldn't know. That's never happened to me. Ever. If I had a shave, I don't have to worry about facial hair coming through until several weeks after the fact. So it's not a choice. It's pure laziness on my part, certainly. So there you go. Beard view, go T-view. David Brent view, looking at this. Let's move on very quickly. Let's talk about the first question in the press conference and the answers that went with it. Of course, as I mentioned, it was a press conference really dominated by just tributes and thoughts and reflection, maybe is the best word to use there, actually, on the career, the life, the legacy of Sir Bobby Charlton as well. So the first question was put to Erik ten Hag was, what is the atmosphere been like within the group at Manchester United? What's it going to be like tomorrow regarding the passing of Sir Bobby Charlton? And Erik ten Hag said, Sir Bobby Charlton was a legend, a giant, not only for Manchester United, but for football. His legacy, what he left, was high standards. We have to live here every day. Our thoughts are with his family, his wife, and his children. Which, again, I can only echo, really, as I mentioned at the beginning of the stream. I think, obviously, look, he's got such a close association with Manchester United. A stand, is named after him, and his statue or his likeness is outside Old Trafford, given, again, his attachment to the club. But really, what I think about is his wider impact on English football, on world football, and the fact that when you're talking about England's greatest ever footballers, and sometimes there is a recency bias, sometimes people think about, people of the modern era, they think about, Wayne Rooney, they go, Paul Gascoigne, maybe nowadays they look at the records and they might say, Harry Kane, because he scored all the goals for England, record goal scorer, or whatever you want to talk about. Or they maybe look at in the future, they go, if Jude Bellingham achieves what he achieves, who knows, we could have that conversation in 20, 30, 40 years' time. But, when you're really talking about the true greats, and in that conversation, the greatest English football player of all time, Bobby Charlton's in that discussion. Sir Bobby Moore's also in that discussion as well. I mean, they're just, it's, Jimmy Greaves. I mean, you could go on, couldn't you? But Bobby Charlton's legacy and his impact, particularly for United, but just global football, is unparalleled, and it's a giant loss for English football, for world football. I mean, again, it cannot be overstated, his importance and his legacy, and also his impact after his footballing, active, playing career ended. I think this was something that came out of the press conference too, and also something that was discussed about quite a lot over the last few days. Obviously, he was a director for a long time, an ambassador too, and it wasn't as if he was hands off with that position either. All of the players, past, present, would all say that he would come into the dressing room after near enough every game, congratulate us, or maybe have a word with us and say, maybe we need to be playing a little bit better, keep the standards to where they should be, as Erik ten Hag mentioned. And no doubt, certainly, he'll be sorely missed. Now, team news about the game tomorrow. This is where the miscommunication happened as well, because the team news, he was asked, are there any players going to be back? And Erik ten Hag said, well, we hope. He says, Sergio trained all week. Today he will train. Then we have to assess if he is game fit or can be available in the squad. He also said that I know last week we said that Sergio was back in training, but he was ill over the weekend. He said Sergio was ill. That's what he said. Sergio was ill. Now, again, I can't lie. I can't lie and say that I didn't immediately go, did he say Sancho? And then very quickly you realise when he's talking about, I mentioned him Friday and we hope he's back and blah, blah, blah. You very quickly realise, oh, right, he's talking about Sergio Reguilon. Definitely not Jadon Sancho, right? So, I think it definitely, you sort of go, well, but then you quickly realise the person he's talking about. But I was surprised to see, I saw it was a tweet from Sky Sports, says Erik ten Hag confirms that Jadon Sancho is going to be back in the squad. And you think that, had he said that, I feel like there would have been a lot more follow-up questions regarding that situation, and there wasn't. It was very clear that he was talking about Sergio Reguilon. So if you're coming here thinking, is Jadon Sancho playing? No, he's not going to be involved tomorrow. He's not playing. He said Sergio Reguilon. That's who he said. So he's back in training. He's been ill. They're going to see if he's available for tomorrow. Look, to me, it's a weird one, actually, because Kenny made this point during the full view last night. And actually, I think he's spot on in that which game is more important this week? Is it the Champions League game tomorrow? Or is it the Manchester derby on Sunday? And you know what? It's a really good question. And I think I agree with what he was saying, whereby it's tomorrow. Obviously, look, the Manchester derby's one of the biggest games of the season. At home as well, got a win. But realistically, if we don't get a result tomorrow, we are out of the Champions League. Against Man City on Sunday, if it's a draw or we lose, it's really disappointing. It's where we are, but it's not the end of the season and it's not the end of the world. Like, in terms of our future in this competition this season really does rely on tomorrow getting the win. If you lose your first 3 games, like, that's just, it's it. You're gone. Maybe, 9 points to get through. I don't know how often that happens, but it's a massive, massive ask, isn't it? So and it's Copenhagen at home. These are the ones who are expected to win. So, I'll put a poll in the chat, actually, because I think it's a really good question. Look, if we'd have beaten Galatasaray, that wouldn't have been the conversation, would it? What's the more important game? We'd be easily saying, oh, you kidding me? Man City, of course, is the most important game. But given the fact that our immediate future in this competition, and what we worked really hard on last season to get back into the Champions League, it could be over after 3 games. That's not good. I'll put a poll in the chat, actually, as well. Let's have a look. So, which game is more important? ? Is it Copenhagen tomorrow, or is it Man City on Sunday? Poll is in the chat, so you get your votes in for that one. I think it's quite an interesting one, because Kenny was of the mindset it's Copenhagen, because if we lose, we're out. City, I think they're probably the favourites to win at the weekend, despite it being at Old Trafford. And KG was like, nah, Manchester derby is always important. It's always one of the most important games of the season. That's just the key thing. We're expected to win tomorrow. Sunday's more important. So get your votes in about that. I'm quite interested to know what you guys think. So going back to Reguilon, he may be involved tomorrow. Just thinking about it too, and this is why I went into that diversion to talk about which game is more important. We probably can get away with not having a recognised left-back against Copenhagen at home in the Champions League. Probably. City, we won't get away with that. I think he's done playing Amrabat at left-back, not worked out. We've seen Lindelof play there at the weekend. We won't get away with that against Man City. Well, they would rip us apart. Absolutely, they'd completely rip us apart. So I think if he was trying to save him for one game, I think he would save him for City over the Copenhagen game. But if it's just a case of illness, and he trained a lot last week, and he trained today, then I don't see any real reason why he shouldn't be involved in both. Realistically, I don't see why not. So I'd probably expect him to start both games, in all honesty. I know he had an injury. Maybe you want to work his way back. Maybe he might start him. Maybe he'll bring him off. Hopefully, if the result's going our way tomorrow, he might have an opportunity to bring him off. But I would expect him to start both games, to be honest with you. Jerome says, they're all important. Questions like this makes it okay to lose certain games. Well, this is when it gets into the territory of you're hearing what you want to hear when it comes to that. Because at no point, is it the case of, we just accept losing or anything like that. And certainly not saying both games or one of the games isn't important. Manchester derby is always important. But if you're going to rate the importance of both games, I myself would maybe lean towards more going, like tomorrow, every game's a must-win when you're a Manchester United manager or player. Ten Hag said it himself. But in terms of, if we don't get the result you want against City, of course you'll be devastated. Of course you'll be incredibly frustrated. But your chances in the Premier League, your destiny is still within your hands at that point. If we don't get the result we want tomorrow, our destiny is no longer in our hands. We've thrown it away. So in terms of the immediacy of which game is more important, you probably would lean towards the Copenhagen game. And that's not to put down the Manchester derby, and that's not to go into the Manchester derby being like, we're going to lose, who gives a shit? Let's not even bother play. Let's just give them the points. Why bother? Let's just not show up. It's not saying like that. It's just a case of, if we don't win tomorrow, we're out, basically, And And that's the case. Steph says, but is Copenhagen more important? Do we really think we will progress in the Champions League after the group stages? Because if not, then it's just extra matches for our squad, most of whom are overplayed or injured. But you can't go into that mentality, can you? You can't go into the mentality of there's no point going through the groups because we're going to go out straight away afterwards. Because then why even bother being in the competition in the first place? You know, if you've got that mentality. I mean, a lot of clubs go into the Champions League knowing that they're most likely not going to win it. Look at the people that have won the Champions League. This is the thing with the Champions League too. Not always the best team in Europe wins the Champions League. Last season it was the case with your likes of your Man Cities. But look at times when like Chelsea, when they won it the first time, they were the best team in Europe. Far from it, you know. And they got through some games just about. Once you get into knockout football too, that's what's also important. Sometimes it's about the luck of the draw. Sometimes your name can just be on the trophy, even if you're playing rubbish. You know, you just got to get to the knockout stages, and then just stuff happens. Not always the best team wins in knockout football. Not always the case. And also too, you don't want to go through all of what last season to get into the Champions League only to write it off after 2 games. As long as you stay in it, you've always got a chance, right? And clearly we're not the favourites at all, but that is just completely giving up on it, and that's certainly not in the spirit of Manchester United after 2 defeats in the Champions League to be like, oh, it doesn't really matter if we go out because we've got too many games. You want to be in the Champions League, and again, stranger things have happened when that. So you're saying we're going to win the Champions League, Owen? No, but I'm saying that after 2 defeats, the mindset shouldn't be, well, if we go out, it's not the end of the world. Realistically, it should be, as long as just get through, just get through. You might get a good draw. Things might turn around. Again, football's funny like that. It is. And also, we want to talk about FFP and stuff like that. Could do with the prize money. Could do with the prize money too. That helps as well. So, yeah, I lean to tomorrow being maybe just a smidge more important, certainly. Next question to Erik ten Hag was saying, Erik, is it easy to put emotion to one side and focus on the football, considering obviously the circumstances of tomorrow's game? And Ten Hag said, of course, we are professionals. You can't ban emotions. In memory of Sir Bobby Charlton, I saw him score a goal similar at Wembley from distance, a bit like Diogo Dalot did at the weekend. There was quite a few comparisons with people saying that, actually, saying it was a Sir Bobby Charlton-esque goal. But again, that's what it is going to be, a highly emotionally charged evening, and sometimes that can make it, sometimes a bit more challenging. But it's about, as Ten Hag said, to put the emotions to one side or harness them and make sure that you can factor that into your performance too. Certainly. Question was to Diogo Dalot, who, as I mentioned, was sitting alongside Erik ten Hag throughout this presser. Talking about Sir Bobby Charlton, saying, clearly you didn't see him play, but have you learned about the impact of him, his career and his legacy at Manchester United? What's the impact been like in terms of the group? You scored a goal that was kind of appropriate on Saturday in comparison to some of Bobby Charlton's goals. And Diogo Dalot said, it's a privilege when you compare Sir Bobby Charlton's goals and then compare it to a goal of your own. I was fortunate enough to get to know him since I arrived. He was always there after games, no matter whether we won or lost. He always gave a word of appreciation or say that we needed to do better, and he set the standard of what we wanted from this club. And again, I think that's an interesting insight into, again, his post-playing career at Manchester United too. I think sometimes we assume, don't we, or certainly some football fans maybe assume this, that once a player ends their playing career and they become, an ambassador or they become a director, sometimes they're not at every game or they're not that involved. It's kind of a token thing. But from all of the interviews that we've seen from the players regarding Sir Bobby Charlton, past or present, they all say, no, he was around a lot. He was around a lot, particularly after the games, before the games, talking to the players, giving advice, complimenting, or not criticizing, it's probably too harsh of a strong word, but reminding people of the standards and reminding of what it means to be a Manchester United player. And again, sometimes not that players forget that, but sometimes you do need a reminder, just in life as well. Sometimes you can not get complacent, but you can just sort of forget things, can't you? And that's why it's always important to have those people around to remind them of, no, this isn't, you can settle for that at other clubs, not Manchester United. And I know sometimes people can roll their eyes at that when people go, but we're Manchester United, and people go, oh, here we go again. But in terms of the standards, and I think more so the sort of the work ethic and the ethos, the culture, the DNA of Manchester United, no one epitomized it more than him. And sometimes, whether it be new players as well, when you get a new player come in or a young player come in and maybe they're not too familiar with the legacy, they're not too familiar with the culture and the ethos and the standards, it's important to have those people around just to be a reminder that that's not how it works around here. This is how we operate. And again, I think it's really fascinating to hear some of these more modern players that maybe you wouldn't have thought had too much crossover with Sir Bobby Charlton, like Diogo Dalot. He's a young guy. He's been here for quite a while, though. When did he come? 2018, I think he was signed by Jose. Really young guy. And even he had interactions with Sir Bobby Charlton. Sir Bobby Charlton talking about him again after games, telling him compliments and also where you need to be a bit better as well, setting the standard. Even to later on in his life. And I think that's really a testament to how much he cared about Manchester United as well. I don't think he took that the importance of the club, of himself to the club, and also the club's importance to him. I don't think he took that lightly at all, not in the slightest. So I think that's really interesting to hear Diogo Dalot talk about that. The follow-up question to that was also, talking about legends like Sir Bobby Charlton. In terms of the Portuguese comparison, maybe it would be Eusebio. Obviously, they played against each other, and just asked him about how aware of him he was before he became a Manchester United player. And he said, quote, "He was an example to follow, and he will be with me for the rest of my career as well." He says he likes to follow good examples, and he certainly was one of them. And he also spoke about, as I mentioned, his impact on the club, but also English and world football too. Because again, sometimes as maybe English fans, and I can only speak for myself, I know we've got quite a broad community here with the UV community. But sometimes you don't sort of recognise the impact that English players have around the world. I remember when Jose Mourinho first became the Manchester United manager, one of the first people he was greeted with by outside of Carrington was Sir Bobby Charlton, and he told him a story about how he made him cry with the playing in the European Cup final and all this kind of stuff. And it's just, again, you don't sometimes realise, when you're in the sort of maybe the English bubble or the Manchester United bubble, you don't realise the global impact of some of these players. And certainly he is an example, and he will always be an example to a lot of these players. Let's have a look at the poll and look at what people are saying in the chat as well. So poll's been up for just over 10 minutes, 132 votes. Which game is more important? And 82% say Copenhagen tomorrow. 18% saying Man City on Sunday. How many likes are we currently on? Look at me, I lost my breath. Over 400 people watching, less than 100 likes. Maybe we sit in silence. Maybe we sit in silence for the proper teacher settings. Maybe just... Or, like when you've done something wrong and you're talking to your parents, you're trying to dig your way out the hole, and they don't say anything, and it makes you nervous. It starts making you really nervous. When you keep talking, and they're just sat there like this. And eventually you go, say something. Say something. Please say something. Sometimes you got to use silence to your benefit. Yeah, that's what they always say. I mean, we're 101 now. Where's it? Chat down there. I'm watching. Yeah, always watching. So next question. Still watching. Next question was, Eric, is tomorrow a must win? And he said, quote, "We have to win every game. But if you lose the first 2 games, you definitely have to win. So it's a must-win game." Breaking news. It's a must-win game. Of course it is. That's why I think it's probably more important than the game at the weekend. Because we have to win. We don't win, we're out. And make no mistake, I know we haven't been very good this season. And I know that actually Copenhagen, they've played well. I mean, was Bayern late winner against them? Against Galatasaray too? They played very well. It's not going to be easy. Like, it's not. No games in the Champions League are easy. They're not. But if you're going to get through, to the next stage, you've got to beat FC Copenhagen at home. And if you don't, you know what, actually, it's quite reflecting, it is, because if you can't beat FC Copenhagen at home in the Champions League, you don't deserve to be in the Champions League. And if we lose tomorrow or we don't win tomorrow, we're out anyway. So you get what you deserve, basically, realistically, tomorrow. If we win, then we deserve to be in the Champions League. If we don't deserve to be in the Champions League. Simple as. And this kind of must-winness for all of these games, tomorrow's game in the Champions League, is going to be the same, really, for every game now, moving forward. We have to be near enough perfect. Maybe bar the last game. Hopefully, we'd have done the work by that point when it comes to playing Bayern Munich. But according to my calculations, I think that we're probably going to be needing a point at home against Bayern Munich. Realistically, if you're going to map out where we're going to go, if we're going to map out what we need here, we need 10 points, I would say. Which means no losses for the remaining 4 games. It means we beat Copenhagen at home, we beat Copenhagen away, we have to beat Galatasaray away, and get a point at home to Bayern. Or you say get a point away to Galatasaray and beat Bayern at home. I don't know about you. I'd rather go into that last game needing a point. Or would you rather get a point against Galatasaray and go into the last game needing a win? Because you know sometimes when you just need a point, sometimes that means you end up losing as opposed to ending up winning. Or you only need a point. Was it when we played Leipzig a few years ago? I think it was during COVID season. I think we just needed a point. Didn't we end up losing that game? And that was after we had that great start to the group as well. I think we only needed a point. And we ended up obviously not getting that. And we went out of the Champions League. So well, would you rather go into the last game needing a win or a draw? What would you rather? Given that I know it's Bayern Munich, but if you're like, we have to beat Bayern Munich at home, then you're like, well, it doesn't matter. You just got to win. Just got to get the 3 points. Go into that needing a draw. Maybe you're a bit reserved. Maybe you play a bit defensive and you start getting into the territory of, let's not make sure we don't throw it away. What would you rather have? I think it's time for another poll. That sounds like a very poll-like question, that's Owen. What scenario? Be good if I could spell scenario. Scenario is always going to be a challenge. Scenario, would you rather have? Question mark. Last game versus Bayern. Bayern need a win. Need a win in the last game. Need a win in the last game. Should have thought out. You know what always gets me? It's the answers. I'm not very good at doing the answers. Need a win in the last game. Need a draw in the last game. There you go. I'm like KG, am I typing? Poll is in the chat. Eventually, it took a minute. It took a while to get there, but we got there. Don F with the super chat says the Sancho deal is childish. Even Erik ten Hag looks silly. No, there are no winners in this situation. But I did the morning view this morning. Ironically, it'd be strange to do the morning view in the afternoon. But the report was that he's finished. And again, that's not hardly even really breaking news, is it, regarding Jadon Sancho? I mean, I mentioned it earlier on. Even if he just woke up, Eureka, I've had an epiphany, I'm now going to apologise, I've seen the error of my ways, and he was integrated back into the squad, that whole situation is it's a black eye, isn't it? That's what it is. And it's best for all parties that everyone moves on at this point. It's best for everyone that moved in. Whether you think that Sancho was right or wrong, whether you think Ten Hag was right or wrong, for me, I still think it's a massively overblown situation. And I thought that Jadon Sancho's initial reaction, whilst he's completely allowed to do, because again, so you're saying, of course he's allowed to defend himself. I don't really see the merits of going out and essentially calling your manager a liar on social media and thinking that's going to work in your benefit, because clearly it's not, unless you want to move away. And then particularly when they go, okay, I would like for you to apologize, and you say no, then it's done. Like, it's done. Again, whether you think whoever's in the right, whoever's in the wrong, it's done. It's a messy situation. It's best for Manchester United that both parties go their separate ways, and that's it. The last thing you need is a player who's the highest paid player at United, an asset, not available because of a dispute with the manager. And for those that will say, Ten Hag's being a bully and he's doing he is the manager. He picks the team. If he believed that Jadon Sancho didn't deserve to be in the squad due to his training performance, that's his prerogative. That's his job. Same like if Flex decided Owen shouldn't be on the shows this week because he's been doing shit, then that's his prerogative, And I can say I don't think that's true, but that's not my call. In the same way that that's not Jadon Sancho's call too. If he thinks that Erik ten Hag has got favourites, maybe he's justified in that, maybe, but he doesn't pick the team, and I find that difficult to see how people cannot wrap their heads around that, because that is just like the fundamentals of how football works. The manager picks the team. If he doesn't think you're pulling your weight, then it's his prerogative to not have you in the team. If he perceives that you've disrespected him, it's his prerogative to say you have to apologise before you get back in. It's Jadon Sancho's choice whether he apologises or not, but it leads to probably his exit from the club. Like that, I don't see that as being such a complicated and convoluted situation, realistically. So, but as I mentioned, it's over. It's been over for several weeks at this point. The challenging thing that United have now is he'll want to go in January. United will want to have him go in January. But from a position of sort of leverage and negotiating, United aren't in a very good position, because anyone that's interested in Jadon Sancho would be like, well, we're not paying all of his wages because we can't afford that. We know you want to get rid of him, so we know we can get him on a cut price. It's not as if like he's going to stay and he's going to play. So they've got United over a barrel when it comes to negotiating that too. So whether that's John Murto, or hey, maybe that's Paul Mitchell at this point, come January, negotiating that. They've got to try their very best to get a good deal. And also, once Sancho's gone, they've got to get a replacement in. Because if you've got some money freed up or some money in, we were told towards the end of the summer that it was a one out, one in principle. So look in the market for a right winger. It's not going to be to the same status of Jadon Sancho. It's not going to be on the same wage of Jadon Sancho. It's probably not going to be the same value in terms of what we paid for him. But, we've got to get a replacement in as well. So, Sultan says, these two games are our most important ones of the season. If we win both, our season kicks on. Well, certainly if we win. We were talking about this last night in the full view too. Like, if we win, obviously we have to win tomorrow's, and our Champions League status doesn't really change in the sense of if we beat Copenhagen at home, but then we lose to them away, we're still kind of screwed realistically. So again, we need perfection, but that's got to start tomorrow. Certainly the game against City, look, if we pick up a win, they always say the table doesn't lie. So we'd be in a decent position. We'd have sort of rallied a bit. No, let's just get to the end of the week though first. and see how this one plays out as well when it comes to it too. But yeah, hey, you never know. You never know. Next question was Eric. It was disappointing against Galatasaray, obviously the result. The positive, though, was Rasmus Hojlund's goals. He's up against his former club tomorrow. Did that game offer a glimpse of his potential? Moments to whet the appetite for what's to come to Manchester United fans. And Ten Hag said, it was quite a long answer actually. He said, first of all, we have to work on our routines. He missed pre-season. He missed the first 4 games. But I think from the moment he came in, he gave the team a lot. We're building the routines and that split moment, I don't know what that is in terms of the transcription for this one. Very poor. That moment will give him, Hojlund, more time and make better decisions for goals. But the goals against Galatasaray were 2 brilliant goals, as well as the one in Munich. I think he's a player who will always be in scoring positions in our team. I'm confident he'll score goals. And Marcus Rashford the same. And it was interesting that he dropped in Marcus Rashford there, because Rashford didn't come up. But let's just get in there. Let's just put Marcus in there as well. Once again, saying they'll be in scoring positions. I do think it's a good point that he brings up with Rasmus Hojlund, that we do kind of forget that with him. First of all, we forget his age. And 2, we forget that he missed pre-season with Man United because the deal was done late anyway. I mean, he got signed. The deal was announced during the day of that pre-season game against Lens at Old Trafford. And by all accounts, he maybe would have been announced earlier, but he had the injury, so United decided to wait to make it a big song and dance for the media and socials and all that kind of stuff. And then also we forget that he did miss the beginning of the season because of that back injury. So he's still probably behind in terms of acclimatizing, adjusting. I still really sympathize for him, because I do think that had he been playing in a team that's actively looking for him, that's actively trying to get him goals, he probably would have at least a Premier League goal at this point. Do you remember that he had that goal chalked off against Brighton? But particularly, I think that game against Galatasaray was really the first game that everyone went, oh man, you saw what his potential is and his capabilities. And particularly the second goal, where it was just brute strength, power, pace, and then a finish to match it. I think that's what he is capable of. I agree with what Ten Hag is saying, that United have to work on the routines, and by that I would hope that he means work on the routines of link-up play and finding him. Keep trying to find him. When you're in the box, he's going to be there. As Ten Hag said, he will be in those scoring positions. He's a striker. He's got those natural striking instincts of wherever the ball is, his mindset is, okay, where is the ball going to land? Where should the ball land? And I should be there. And his movement's really, really good. So for me, it's just about keep trying to find him. And we did see that, in fairness, a couple of times against Sheffield United. Rashford flashed one across goal. He nearly got 2. That happened against, who else? Was it Brentford? I think that happened against 2. We flashed it across goal and he somehow missed the ball, like in terms of getting there as well. Obviously, Foderingham made a good save from him as well. So I do think that is coming, but you still need to see more of it. Still need to see way, way, way more of it. And as far as Rashford, he had a better game at the weekend against Sheffield United. It's still way off what he was last season. Still way, way off. But he had a better game. And here's just hoping that it's a kickstart, and and he can play himself into form a bit, because I saw him. I recall back to last season. Remember, he came off the terrible season under Ollie and Ralph and all that kind of stuff. And I remember even starting in pre-season, he looked off. And at the beginning of the season, he was still a bit off. And he gradually got a bit better. And this is a lot of hopium, I know. This is a stretch. Maybe my hope is that maybe that England goal, he's starting to play himself into a bit of better form. I didn't think for England he was particularly great, to be honest. Again, I thought he was better against Sheffield United. Still way off, because no one really stood out massively. Everyone was amazing against Sheffield United. I thought Harry Maguire played well. He probably deserved man of the match. But realistic, nobody was like, it wasn't a good watch against Sheffield United. And people can say that's negative, but it wasn't. It was a tough watch. But they're wins, and hopefully the wins will just build some kind of confidence, realistically. As far as Hojlund, as I mentioned, just got to keep trying to find him. And keep trying to provide him that service. But there is something there. There is definitely something. I think we saw that against Galatasaray. And also, let's make no mistake too. Against Galatasaray, you had senior players around him like Bruno and Rashford that really weren't delivering that day. They were poor too. And it was Hojlund, if anything, who sort of, it felt like, put the game on his back, grabbed it by the scruff of the neck and was like, I'm going to try and do my best to make sure Man United wins. Even his goal that was ruled out for offside, it felt like he was the one that was, again, picking the game up and going, I'm just going to try and get something going here. So, again, I like that personality from him as well. Matifali with a super chat says, when are we going to have an honest conversation about Eric? Where is his style of play? Give him first season, but second, it has to show. Injuries are no excuse for the lack of style of play. We're just grinding by results. I think if you get through this week and you don't win either game, I think then, again, there's more pressure on him. I think to say that injuries are no excuse, I think the thing is, people don't like to hear excuses. And this isn't me blindly defending him or anything like that. I do think the defensive injuries have played a massive part. And don't get me wrong, some of his signings at the moment, you'd go, are they really paying off? The Andre Onana thing isn't working at the moment. I hope that he can turn it around, because he was meant to be one of the final pieces, right? He was meant to be one of the final pieces in the puzzle. And if anything, what we've seen in the last few games is actually United get away from that again. When we played Arsenal at the Emirates, one of the positives coming out of the game is you watched us play out from the back, and the sort of thing was actually, I tell you what, we were under pressure, but eventually Arsenal stopped pressing us because we were so good at playing out from the back. Onana, Martinez was playing that day. And again, maybe that comes from, because of the defensive injuries that we've had, Ten Hag is reluctant to play that sort of high-risk style playing out from the back, because the players that he would want there to do it, i.e. Martinez, Varane, etc., they're not available. And maybe he's having to sort of abandon that, I don't know. And I do think if you look at some of the positions this season, it has been square pegs and round holes. Now, don't get me wrong, that's not a blind defence, because against a team like Sheffield United, you've just got better players on the pitch. You should be playing better. And you do watch these games, particularly this season, particularly in the last few weeks, and you go, I don't see the game plan. I don't see the game plan. I don't see the style. Maybe once we get those players back on a consistent, regular basis, we'll see it. I don't know. Maybe that's me answering your question there. Maybe that's the time to have that honest conversation about Erik ten Hag. Is once we've got a full squad full of players, and look, you're never going to have a full squad of players. Everyone's got their injuries this season. Don't get me wrong, but I do think you can't. I don't think you can look past some of the defensive stuff we've had this season. Our best back four, arguably, is Wan-Bissaka, Varane, Martinez and Shaw. I mean, I saw Varane was on the bench at the weekend, but we've had the last couple of weeks, we've had one of those available. It's nuts. It's crazy. There's an argument to be made. The entire back four that played at the weekend none of them would get into the strongest back four. Maybe, Dalot, Maguire, Evans, Lindelof. And what were those people saying last season about what Ten Hag's what Ten Hag wants his football to be? It starts at the back. It starts at the back, playing out from the back. That's all of those progressive goalkeeping people were saying. It starts out from the back, But if your strongest back four ain't there, it's going to hurt. Of course it is. And you don't have a settled back four because they're all out injured. That's part of it too. Now, does that excuse the midfield being a lot of dog shit? No, it doesn't. That's been poor too. But that is part of it, certainly. I think that is. And I think to say injuries are no excuse, I think is a bit of a stretch. Sultan says, we can't afford to get a replacement for Sancho. If we rid of him, even getting rid of him would cost us money. Well, there's a potential, certainly, that there's going to be some element of paying him off. I think so. I think there is going to be some element of that. But I do think that they'd look to get replacement in. I'd be stunned if it was just, let's get Sancho out and just we're not even considering a replacement at all. I don't know about that. I hope not. But again, you never know, certainly. You never know. Next question, where are we at? Next question. This was actually one, because you might think, well, why was Christian Eriksen brought up? This was from the Danish media. It said, Eric, Christian Eriksen hasn't started a game since the 20th of September. Sheffield United, he was on the bench despite the Casemiro injury. Is he good enough to start a game? And Ten Hag said, he takes part in every game and you see his importance when he's on the pitch. He has a big influence on our team by creating, and he's a brilliant player, someone who is very important in our squad. Follow-up question to that was, so what's the reason he's not starting? And Ten Hag said, we have many good players and there is internal competition in the midfield department. There is huge competition. So the reason Christian Eriksen's not starting games is because it has to be at this point specific games for him to start, doesn't it? And also he has to have the legs around him. And this season we've struggled for legs in midfield. We have. The midfield has been wide open. And some of our better performances, there haven't been many, but some of our better performances have come when there's been more legs in midfield. There's been more energy in midfield when Hannibal and Mason Mount have been on the pitch together at the same time, players that can get around. That's why Kobbie Mainoo, when he comes back, is going to be so important too, because he can get around the pitch. That's not to say that Christian Eriksen won't have his moments and times this season. I think when he came on against Brentford, he was really, really positive when he came on in games, because there's still an argument to be made. Is there a better technical midfielder at Man United at the moment than Christian Eriksen? In terms of his range of passing, in terms of being the pass before the pass? Probably not. Probably not, realistically. But in games which you're going to need players to be able to get around the pitch and cover a lot of ground, that's when you will say it's not the right game for him. When you're playing at home and you're going to dominate possession and teams are going to get behind the ball, that's when you can play Christian Eriksen. You can also play Eriksen in those bigger games, provided that the people alongside him are going to cover a lot of ground, because that's just not what he's going to do. He doesn't really track runners into the box defensively well either, so that's part of a problem too. So I just think that, as Ten Hag mentions, there's just it's the right game and it's the right time to play Christian Eriksen, but it's not to say that he doesn't have a part to play at all this season either. Mark says, does Owen only read super chats? No. I've read quite a few chats in here at the moment as well. Can't read everyone, obviously, because, you kind of have to do a show, but, I can read another one. Here, from Palmerius says, fans last season, sure, Dalot, Wan-Bissaka, Rashford, Lindelof have all improved. Fans this season, Ten Hag hasn't improved anyone. The reactionary social media fan is very real. There you go. There's two. That better? Do we just do another one? I mean, it's very, very difficult, isn't it? Very challenging. Next question was to Diogo Dalot, saying, you've won the last 2 games. Is this a turning point for Manchester United this season? And Dalot said, every game is an opportunity. We want to build confidence and momentum. We have shown in these games when you don't play the way you want, you have to find a way to win, which is actually something that Ten Hag mentioned later on, which is quite interesting. He said players can show up and win games. We have to use these victories to build momentum. So certainly it was something that was pointed out by Dalot and Ten Hag in this press conference, that there is an acknowledgement that we didn't play very well at the weekend. And I think that's the important thing. If you're going into these, reacting to the games afterwards and going into the press conference afterwards being like, oh, you played brilliantly, then it's just, that's not true. We didn't play particularly well at the weekend. But even when we're not playing well, we still got to get wins, right? And that is where I kind of look at the game at the weekend and I say, look, it wasn't pretty. It was bad. It's worrying that we're the way we're playing. But as long as we're picking up wins at the moment, you'll take it. Because the start to the season has been such a mixed bag, especially with Man United. You can't keep losing games. You just got to win. So that is a positive to take. But eventually, the performances have to catch up. And the performances haven't been good. The fact that you would say, oh, what's our best performance this season? You say Crystal Palace at home in the Carabao Cup against a weakened Palace side. That's not good. That is not good. But at the moment, you just got to pick up wins. The start's been so shaky that it's just win at all costs. And that's what it is tomorrow as well. If we come out of tomorrow's game and we play similarly to how we played against Sheffield United, which is not great, but we've won, that's all that matters for now. Now, you can't be naive and think that you'll be able to do that against a team like Man City, because you won't. Even, I know Man City aren't, playing to their best this season, but still half their best is better than how we've been playing. So you can't be naive to that, but at the moment it's just about winning. That's what it's all about. It's all about winning. That's it. What else have we got here? Here's one. Did anyone say anything about Man City losing to Wolves 1-0 to Arsenal? What about City when City first conceded to Sheffield, winning 2-1? Well, first of all, whataboutism is a big bugbear of mine, because I would also then say about Man City, what about the fact of where are they in the league? Second at the moment? I'd like to be there. I'd like to be... Where are they in the league? Let's do a double check. Let's make sure I get my facts right or whatever when it comes to this. Right, they're top. So, I mean, I know where I'd like to be at the moment, realistically, when it comes to that as well. We are 8th at the moment, so, and again, and that's not to say that City and Spurs didn't struggle against Sheffield United. That's why I say that's why I say that it's all about winning, and we won. That's cool. No problem. No problem with that. But at the same time, to sort of compare ourselves to Man City and like their performances recently, that's not genuine, is it? It's not. So I don't know. Yeah. VK's been a member for 16 months. Says it takes much lesser time hitting a like for Owen than it does typing out the chats. Well, there you go. How many likes are we currently on at the moment as well? How many likes are we currently on? We are at 158 likes. Let's see if we can get to 200. 250. If you haven't already, click the like button as well. The idea of, and also when you say, does anyone say anything about Man City losing to Wolves or Arsenal? Yes, they definitely did. I'm pretty sure there were coverage of that. Just ask the Arsenal fans. Oh my God, they won the league when they beat Man City. So I don't know. I'm not sure what the point is you're trying to make there, to be honest. Because again, it's the whataboutism with that. They're still top of the league. And make no mistake here, yeah? If Man United were top of the league, even as early as October, we'd be going mental. Right? We'd be going mental. Because that doesn't happen with Man United, right? It doesn't. And they, in terms of recent seasons, they have a bit of credit in the bank of even if they don't start the season. This is meant to be a bad start for them as well. A terrible start to the season for them. They're top of the league. Yeah? Top of the league. They beat Brighton at home at the weekend. We couldn't do that. We got played off the park. So it's just at the moment about winning. About winning tomorrow, and hopefully that momentum, we can take that confidence into the game against City as well. Next question was about Rasmus Hojlund facing his former club tomorrow. The question was put to Ten Hag. Do you sense it's going to be a special match for him? And Ten Hag said he grew up at this club, so he'll be highly motivated. He will send that match in the right direction with the right balance. Next question was from Beth from United Stand. Big up, Beth. Always big up all the other fan channels whenever in the press conferences and they get the questions. I think that's really important to do because it's still incredible, isn't it? It's still incredible that fan channels have the opportunity to ask those questions in there and sit alongside, more traditional media, written press, rights holders, etc. It's fantastic. So big up to her, big up to anyone that ever gets in there, whether it's us, whether it's United Stand, whether it's Stretford Paddock. I'll always shout them out. The question was, we've seen the link-up play of Martial. Has Erik ten Hag ever considered Hojlund and Martial together? And Ten Hag said they can play together because Martial is also available to play from the side. Now, I did hear that. When he said that, I went, I mean, Martial has played from the left, but at this stage in his career, when Anthony Martial the record is still intact. Just like The Undertaker going into WrestleMania 30, the streak is intact because Anthony Martial has still yet to play 90 minutes for Erik ten Hag. That's still a thing that has not happened since Erik ten Hag became the Manchester United manager. So I think the idea that Martial could play from the left sustainably, I don't know if his body could really handle it at this point. I think Martial's role for this season, is what we saw against Sheffield United, which is 65 minutes, 70 minutes, 75 minutes, 80 minutes. A like-for-like substitution. Martial can come on. Maybe he can impact the game. Maybe he doesn't. When he came on against Bayern Munich, he was really good. He was good when he came on. I thought his link-up play was excellent. And his link-up play is very good. His link-up play, close touch play is good. But the idea, I think, of Martial playing on the left, I don't see that. At this point, particularly obviously with Rashford, he's a favourite of Ten Hag. He's always going to try and get him in the team. Garnacho, if it's not Rashford, it's Garnacho. It's not going to be Anthony Martial. It's not going to happen. Diogo Dalot, the follow-up question from Beth was to Dalot about his goal. Said it was similar to the goal he scored in pre-season. Is that something that he's working on? And Dalot said, yes, that's something we work on. In that moment, the position was there for me to hit the ball. Sofian Amrabat was more on the left. Something I think I can do more from distance. I remember the one in pre-season was similar. So tried to score, unfortunate enough to do it as well. That was it as well. I was just looking at things. Lots of people talking about the Sancho thing because people thought he said Sancho. The question then was Ten Hag was, what kind of atmosphere are you expecting tomorrow? How can you harness that? Of course, being an emotionally filled and charged evening after the first home game since the passing of Sir Bobby Charlton. And Ten Hag said, quote, "It's always a special every night at Old Trafford. The fans are always so behind us. It's a strong connection. The last home game against Brentford, when the game was going against us, they stayed behind us. The fans stick with us in adverse moments. We fight together. So definitely tomorrow after the passing of Sir Bobby Charlton, their hero, legend, and a giant, I'm sure it will be a very emotional evening." Yeah, and certainly it will. Certainly it will. And I'm sure the atmosphere will be fantastic tomorrow. No doubt about that. And finally, Ten Hag was asked in terms of, would the perfect tribute be a victory? And could that be the spirit to go on this season and be successful? In regards to Bobby Charlton, could that kind of, could his spirit push us on this season? And Ten Hag said he is in front of Old Trafford with Dennis Law and George Best. He's always with us, and they are always a huge inspiration for us every day and every game. And certainly Ten Hag is spot on with what he's saying there as well. Super chat from Aminor, or should I say Amin Snore, says, "Owen, I'm embarrassed for the Zeds on KG stream yesterday." Now, there might be, Aminor, you might have done yourself a bit of a disservice here, because there might be people that are watching this now live or watching this after the fact that won't know what you're talking about there. So I'll educate them. Go back and watch yesterday's stream on KG's channel. It was a 5 Things Deep stream. I don't know the exact time of it. I'm sure someone in the comment section will probably timestamp it, I'm sure. And if you're familiar with the format of KG's streams and shows, gets lots of callers, come in, puts the link in the chat, people call in, they have their say. And sometimes, look, you can be on hold for a while. I mean, I can speak from experience of not only waiting sometimes, because I shouldn't get preferential treatment, and I've done those kind of shows, obviously the full-time view. Sometimes, you see all of these people that are waiting and you try your very best to get them on, but sometimes it's difficult to get them all on. Sometimes the demand is really high, so you might be waiting for a while. Whilst Aminor was waiting, he nodded off. He fell asleep. Proper in the land of nod. Like that. And KG got him up on the screen and woke him up. Said, "Aminor!" And he woke up. And, it's always funny, isn't it? Whenever you get woken up from a bit of a deep sleep, your sort of initial reaction, because your brain's very much on autopilot. Your brain's very much trying to, figure out what's going on, get its bearings. So you just start saying stuff straight away. And bless Amador. This shows he's a nice guy. But because he was unconscious. He's not conscious, and he wakes up. And the first thing he says is, "KG, you okay?" "No, I'm more worried about you. Are you okay? You weren't conscious at the time." It was, my play-by-play could not do it justice. So if you haven't already, be sure to check that out. It's very funny. It's excellent stuff. So there you go, guys. That was the press conference for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. What's on tap for the remainder of the day? Well, there is going to be a preview coming. It's going to be myself, and I think DJ is going to be joining me for a preview. That's going to be coming out later on this evening. There also is going to be a tactical view breaking down the game at the weekend as well against Sheffield United, obviously coming from Cam himself. So be sure to check that out when that comes out. Probably going to come out in the next couple of hours, I think, or something like that. So plenty of content. And of course, tomorrow it's game day. The games come thick and fast. So it'll be full match day experience. We'll be back with the morning view, 9 a.m. tomorrow. Then we're going to have road trip. Flex is going to be back. Road trip. Then obviously the match view, fan views, full-time views. You know it. We'll cover it. So be sure to join us then. Be sure to subscribe. Click the notification bell. You'll be notified whenever these new videos get uploaded or whenever we go live or anything like that. And look, you never know. In between then, there might be some news. It's Manchester United after all. Anything can happen. We've still got this acquisition thing going on. So stay tuned. But have a good Monday afternoon. And I'll speak to you again very soon. I'm out of here. Peace.